Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor. Welcome back to my home garden in Long Island, New York, Gardening Zone 7A. In today's video, I will share with you 5 tips that will help you grow a mountain of cucumbers. If you follow these 5 easy tips, you will grow more cucumbers than you ever know what to do with. So for those of you looking for that online gardening channel that offers tips, tricks, easy yet proven gardening advice to take your home gardens to the next level, don't go anywhere, guys. Stick around with me today. Start with going below this video and clicking the subscribe button. If you enjoy the content of my garden videos, I want YouTube to send you notifications every single time I'll upload a new garden video. Click the bell icon as well. Now come with me, let's get gardening. All the annual crops that we grow in our home gardens, cucumbers can get quite tricky to grow, especially for those of us beginner home gardeners. Cucumbers are a part of cucurbit family. Majority of cucumber varieties are monoecious cucumber varieties. Let me explain to you what that means. Monoecious cucumber varieties have 2 different types of reproductive flowers on the plant. The first is the female reproductive flower. The second is the male reproductive flower. Cross-pollination is required for monoecious cucumbers varieties to set and grow fruit. So now, how does this cross-pollination take place? Majority of the time from our busy garden helpers such as bumblebees. However, even bumblebees are not 100% successful, more like 60 to 75% successful, which is why there are other tricks that us home gardeners can do to manipulate our cucumber plants to produce a mountain of cucumbers all summer long. Believe it or not, my fellow home gardeners, this ginormous, large bushel are simply 2 cucumber plants. And I want to get in much closer and to show you how many flowers, how many blooms, and how many cucumbers I have growing on these 2 plants. Just look at all those beautiful cucumbers. Look how many blooms I have on 2 individual cucumber plants. Now let's get in much closer towards the center so I can show you clear distinction between a female reproductive flower versus a male reproductive flower, which is right over here. How can you distinguish between the 2 when they're all exactly the same bright yellow color? Female flower on a cucumber plant will always have a baby cucumber growing right below it. Here's another great example. You could see that this flower is starting to dry up, getting ready to fall off as this cucumber is growing. Let me show you what a male flower looks like. Here's a clear example. It's the same bright yellow color. However, you could see that instead of a cucumber, it has a thin, small stem right below it. So if you don't see any cucumber growing below the flower bloom, that is a male reproductive flower. Here's another very clear example. Let me move this vine right over here. You could see the thin little stem. That is a male flower versus a female flower, which is right over here with a baby cucumber growing right below it. Male reproductive flowers tend to appear few days or up to a week before the female reproductive flowers. How do you know if cross-pollination was indeed successful? How do you know that that cucumber will continue to grow and mature? Come with me, let's get in closer and I'll show you. Let's look right over here. Can you see that the flower bloom is starting to dry up, shrivel up, and getting ready to fall off? If you see that the flower is shriveled up, dry looking, getting ready to fall off, then you know that the cross-pollination was successful and that cucumber will continue to grow. If the cross-pollination was not successful, you're going to see the small cucumber right below the female reproductive flower change color from bright green to yellow, brown, or even beige. The entire baby cucumber will start to die off and will fall off entirely from the plant. start growing monoecious cucumber varieties like I've grown right over here, in order to get a massive, huge cucumber harvest, each of the female reproductive flowers will have to be successfully cross-pollinated. If you know that you don't have a huge pollinator population such as bees, or if you live in a climate with lots of rainfall, that might become an issue. So you will have to come out on a daily basis and help cross-pollinate the female reproductive flowers. How can you do that? First and foremost, you can take a male reproductive flower, which is right over here. Again, remember, there's no baby cucumber right below the bloom. You see this thin stem, hence it's a male flower. There is pollen inside this flower. So you're going to find a female reproductive flower right over here, which is perfect. You could see that the flower is wide open. It's still very, very small right over here. You're going to take the male flower and you're going to rub it like this against the female flower. By doing this, you're helping manually cross-pollinate. If you don't want to use an actual flower, you can use a Q-tip or even a delicate paintbrush. Rub inside the male flower, collect the pollen, and then manually using a Q-tip or a brush, do the same thing, transfer the pollen into the female reproductive flower. My fellow home gardeners who don't want to use a Q-tip, a paintbrush, or even pull off a male flower and manually cross-pollinate each female reproductive flower, I have a great spray right over here. Tomato and Blossom Set Spray. Ready to use. Contains a plant hormone found in nature that promotes blossom set and fruit development, increases yields. I am going to link this spray in the description box below for those of you who are interested. I personally purchased this spray on Amazon, but I know that many garden centers and plant nurseries carry it as well. So how do you use it? You shake it well, and you find a female reproductive flower right over here. Again, you could see the baby cucumber on the bottom, and you spray it right into the center of your flower, right over here. And that is all you have to do. And this spray is safe for organic gardening as well. Now, not all cucumber varieties are monoecious. Again, monoecious varieties are the ones that produce two separate types of reproductive flowers, the female reproductive flower and the male. There are cucumber varieties that are parthenocarpic, and I have two examples growing right over here in these 15-gallon size containers. So what are the parthenocarpic cucumbers? They are the cucumber varieties that produce only one type of reproductive flower. Typically, that is the female flower. So these cucumber varieties do not require cross-pollination. Majority of the cucumber varieties which we see sold at garden centers, big box stores, or plant nurseries are monoecious cucumber varieties. If you're trying to grow parthenocarpic varieties, you will have to sow these directly from seed yourself, which is exactly what I did in these two containers. And I added trellising support right over here. Because again, as they will continue to grow, they will need that trellising support. And I do want to keep them above the soil surface to prevent disease or bacteria. Two parthenocarpic cucumber varieties, which I highly recommend. And both of these varieties produce only female reproductive flowers, hence they do not need to be cross-pollinated. Those two varieties are one, Party Girl variety, and two, Merlin cucumber variety. Tip number 2 to get an enormous cucumber harvest is to always grow your cucumbers up, vertically upright. I know when you plant your cucumbers, they're quite small and short. As they will grow, of course, they're going to get huge, like I have these cucumbers right over here. These are over 5 feet tall. You could see that I always use a trellis, and there are various trellises available out there. In fact, you can even build your own. If you let your cucumbers grow horizontally or touch the ground, the soil surface, you're asking for bacterial and fungal disease. Hence, you're at a risk of losing your cucumber plant altogether. Just look at the abundant amount of flower blooms, and look how many new flower blooms are starting to set right over here. Insane amount. Just take a look. That tip number 3 to get a massive abundant cucumber harvest. That tip is to pick your cucumbers often. Why? Because one of the downsides to growing cucumbers is that if you let even a single cucumber go to maturity on the vines and go to seed, the mother plant, your entire cucumber plant, will start to die off. Why? Because it's going to be under the impression that it reproduced successfully and it's time to die off. Cucumbers are vining plants. They're a combination of multiple vines. So cucumbers do have a tendency to hide within these vines, which makes it hard for many of us home gardeners to find and locate each of the cucumbers, especially if we have lots and lots of flower blooms within the vines. Always make sure that you look through your cucumber plants every single time, multiple times per day. Get in there, move the leaves away. Look for these cucumbers. They can be anywhere within these vines. They might be covered by foliage as well. The second you see that your cucumbers are reaching a certain size, you pick them. You pick them before they mature, and you pick them as often as possible. Another reason why you should pick your cucumbers as often as possible is because the more cucumbers you will pick, the more new female and male reproductive flower blooms your plant will set. Cucumbers' goal is to reproduce, and again reproduce. The more you pick, the more new cucumbers your plant will grow for you. That is that tip number 4 for massive cucumber production and harvest, and that is to fertilize your cucumber plant on a regular basis. Like we just said earlier, the more cucumbers you will pick, the more new cucumbers your cucumber plant will produce and grow for you. But that comes at a cost. You have to give back for what you take. Never forget to fertilize your cucumber plant consistently. I like to use a Spoon Organic Garden Tone fertilizer, which has an NPK ratio of 3:4:4. If you want to use a stronger fertilizer, say 5:5:5 ratio, that would be great as well. How often do you have to fertilize your cucumber plants? Depends where you grow them. If you grow them in a grow bag or a 15 to 20 gallon size container, you should fertilize every 7 to 10 days. Because remember, when growing cucumbers in containers, that root system is bound to that specific container. If you're growing in a raised garden bed like I do, or even directly in the soil of your home garden, you could stretch the time a bit and fertilize every 10 to 14 days. Slow release organic fertilizer, regardless of the NPK ratio, is never enough. You want to add that calcium and that phosphorus to your cucumber plants as well. I always like to side dress the soil beneath my cucumber plants with bone meal as well. Bone meal is an excellent organic source of calcium and phosphorus, which helps build stronger root systems as well as set more blooms. Here's one example of bone meal. This is by Expert Gardener Organics Bone Meal, 3:15:0 ratio. Even says right over here on the bag, natural source of nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium. Promotes strong roots, bigger blooms, and better vegetables. I picked this bag up at my local big box stores, but Amazon sells bone meal. Garden centers, nurseries, all sell bone meal. So always sprinkle some around the root system of your plant and work it in thoroughly using your fingertips. On top of the slow release organic fertilizer, even on top of a bone meal, I also use water soluble fertilizer as well. I always use fish fertilizer. This is by Alaska brand, 5:1:1 ratio. It says it's meant for organic gardening, will not burn. There are clear instructions on the back as to how many tablespoons per gallon of water ratio. It says that for vegetables, bedding plants, bulbs, and annuals, you should use 2 tablespoons per 1 gallon of water. Remember that granular fertilizers will take time to dissolve, to go into the root system and to kick in and start working. Water-soluble fertilizers, such as fish fertilizer, will give that instant fertilization boost to your cucumber plant, especially when it's setting all of these beautiful new fruit. You want that fruit to stay and to grow. And you never want to experience flower bud drop as well. That typically happens when your plant starts lacking nutrients. Remember, every bud that falls, you're more likely to decrease your cucumber yield, your cucumber harvest. Next tip for massive cucumber harvest. That tip is to keep our plant healthy. How can you help keep your cucumber plant healthy? By getting all the way down to the soil surface and by keeping the leaves from touching the soil surface. I always like to prune off, pinch off, or cut off all of the bottom leaves. You want to make sure that none of the leaves are touching the soil surface. Why? Because if the leaves will touch the soil surface and you're attempting to water your cucumber plant, the water will splash up onto these leaves, potentially spreading disease, whether it's bacterial or fungal. And you could see that these bottom leaves already were not doing too well. There are already holes in these leaves and there's already discoloration on these leaves. Hence, we must always pinch them off. If you see any new leaves growing that are starting to touch the soil surface, we pinch those off as well. For those of my fellow home gardeners who stuck around with me till the very end of today's video, I want to share that extra 6 tip with you guys, how to get a massive, abundant cucumber harvest. And that tip is keep your cucumber plants safe and cool, especially during hot summer days. Cucumbers are vining plants and they were not meant to grow in hot, direct sun locations. The reason why we plant them in a full sun location is because we are limited to how many days per year we can grow up crops. That is all due to last and first anticipated frost dates. If your growing season is about 120 days or less, you can get away with not covering your plants with shade cloth. However, if you have longer growing seasons and you see the temperatures go above 90 degrees, if you see the UV index go above 9 to 10 to 11, you should definitely have that shade cloth ready on hand. Pop it out and cover your tender, delicate cucumber plants with that shade cloth. When our cucumber plants are exposed to very high temperatures, to high UV index, you're going to see the leaves wilt. You're going to see discoloration of the foliage. You might even see bloom drop. Hence, the mother plant can succumb and start to die off. Especially if you live in those hotter states, hotter areas, say Texas, Arizona, Nevada, even South Florida. For those of you guys living in those areas, and I just named a few, you should definitely invest in a shade cloth. For those of you, my fellow home gardeners who are reluctant to spend money on a shade cloth, many think that is quite an expensive investment. Let me reassure you that shade cloth are not as expensive as many of you might think. In fact, I'm going to link some decently priced, some affordable shade cloth in the description section below for those of you who are interested in taking a look. Plus, by using a shade cloth, you're going to be saving yourself so much money on water bills as well as irrigation. Shade cloth do help keep that soil surface cooler and slow down the evaporation of the moisture. So the slower the moisture evaporates, the less watering you will have to do, hence decreasing the cost of your monthly water bill. This video, you guys, thank you so much for joining me here today in my home garden in Long Island, New York, Zone 7A. In today's video, I shared with you 5 easy tips for massive, abundant cucumber production. We covered all the steps that are so easy, yet can help you get an abundant, early, continuous cucumber harvest. If you follow these easy, ridiculously easy 5 steps, I promise you, your cucumbers will not only start producing for you early, they will set an abundant amount of cucumbers, as well as perform for you the entire summer season. So for those of you who enjoyed the content of today's video, if you found today's video to be useful, helpful, informative, in absolute any way, don't be shy, guys. Super easy for you to do, super pleasing and rewarding to me. Just click the thumbs up icon below. If you haven't yet subscribed to my gardening channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor, what are you waiting for, guys? Super easy for you to do, super pleasing and rewarding to me. Just go below this video and click the subscribe button. Don't forget to click the bell icon as well if you enjoy the content of my videos and want YouTube to send you notifications every single time I'll upload a new garden video. Don't forget to write your comments in the comment section below as well, my fellow home gardeners. I personally read each and every single one of your comments and respond to each and every single one of you. Stay healthy, happy, be well, each and every single one of you, my fellow home gardeners. And happy gardening, guys. And I'll see you again in my new upcoming gardening videos. Bye, guys.